Welcome to Awake to Oneness Radio. I am Caroline Chang, your host. The mission of Awake to Oneness Radio is to inspire the world to awaken to the universal truth of oneness. Science is now teaching us that all life is interconnected and interdependent. And spirituality and ancient wisdom has been teaching the truth of oneness for eons. So what you do to a person, you're literally doing to another aspect of yourself. And when mankind awakens to the truth of oneness, there will be peace on earth. Today's show topic is humanity's awakening with Saryon Michael White. Saryon has been my guest before. Welcome again to Awake to Oneness Radio. Saryon.
Thank you for having me back. I actually really been looking forward to this interview because I love our connection and I love the topic of the show, and it's always good energy.
Yes. So please, I know you have been my guest before, but I know I have different listeners every show. So just to refresh those who are not familiar with you, can you give us a brief introduction to who you are?
Yes, thank you. A brief introduction to who I am. Well, I would say that from this point, looking back, there has been quite an incredible spiritual journey that began with an awakening in my late teens. And that awakening for me was, I think, much, much more dramatic than, what the kind of stories of awakening I hear. And I've heard a lot of stories of awakening that are miraculous, incredible. In my case, it awakened some pretty full-blown spiritual or psychic abilities, and led to experiences of real visceral contact and physical reality with different types of higher beings, from extraterrestrial beings to ascended masters, profound synchronicities that began to unfold. And I always knew, even then, because I was shown this in visions, that I was going to be writing books one day. So over the course of the last 25 years, somewhere in that process, I started getting trained to be a channel for ascended masters and angels, and to bring through guidance that was personal for individual people, and then more and more for groups. I began teaching courses, and at a certain point, I was given guidance to start finally writing the books. And when it was time for the books, I mean, I was waiting my whole young adult life at the time. I was 30 when this started to happen, but the blueprints for these books were beyond my wildest dreams.
Wow.
Of being able to bring through new information that could help awaken humanity into oneness. And along the way, I started to get the spiritual blueprint for this new fiction series. So actually the very first book that I'm publishing, it's not the first one I've written, but it's the first one I'm publishing, is Roya Sands and the Bridge Between Worlds.
Yes.
And this is the very first book. It's book 1 of 4 in a fictional series that contains a lot of prophetic and revealed information that the story, as an adventure story, is designed to carry these insights and messages in a way, I would say, somewhat comparable to the Celestine Prophecy series. But this is, we're living in a new time, and there's challenges that we're facing today that we didn't even know about back when those books were coming out. So this is a totally different take on a spiritual adventure story that brings us real teaching and revelation and prophecy that we can start to live and implement in our own lives.
Wow, that's cool. I like the fact that even though it's a novel, it's bringing through spiritual truth that we can actually apply in our lives today. That's wonderful. And you say it's the first book of a 4-book series, correct?
Yes, first book of a 4-book series.
Wow.
Yep.
So and when you said your awakening, I find so uniquely, one of the things I love doing this show, I speak to people that are awakening and are awake, and everyone has a unique story to share. And I think those stories are so special because they're supposed to be unique. And each person awakens from within, but there are things outwardly like books and teachers and courses and things of that nature that help point us to go within, and the awakening occurs. So, and that's why I picked the topic of this show, Humanity's Awakening, because I really believe that we are on the verge and immersed already in humanity's awakening.
Absolutely. I'll tell you one of the things that I'm noticing about that has been more recent is how the new level of global interconnectedness that we have, in part through technology and social media,
Yes.
is allowing the ripple effects of positive changes to go global much more quickly than ever before. And so one of the examples that I look at, I think it's so fascinating because people have been asking me, you're saying like there's so much light coming into the world that you're seeing. Well, then why is there so much darkness? Why is there so much duality and darkness seems to be still gaining a foothold? And it's really interesting when you look at the big picture and you really examine all of the things happening in the periphery of the drama that you see in the mainstream media. Like, for example, this woman that testified in front of the Senate committee for the confirmation hearing. A lot of people felt like she was not taken seriously. A lot of people felt like, this woman put her whole career on the line and her reputation on the line to step out and do this. And a lot of people were very upset that it did not prevent this particular confirmation from happening. Now, regardless of which way you see it, I mean, people on both sides were disturbed by the events and very upset by what happened. But when you look at the larger picture, what you can see is that, for example, all of these prep schools, like the one that Brett Kavanaugh went to, started having these conversations about how can we reform campus culture? How can we create more safety for women? How can we create a culture of consent? How can we, and then schools all throughout the United States started looking at, the fact that we don't teach consent in sex education. And we need to actually do that much more widely and look at the importance of that in our culture. So that's one of many ways in which light is infusing into the situation, and how this incredible drama that still left so many people disheartened actually served a greater purpose. I mean, there was like a 300% increase in people calling abuse hotlines and reaching out for help the day after this woman's testimony. Yes. So her testimony changed lives in a profound way. And now, partly as a result of, I was just reading this morning, that now the Me Too movement is really penetrating into India, partly as a result of what was witnessed with these Senate confirmation hearings and this woman's testimony. There were people in India saying, taking note of this and going, you know what, this doesn't feel right. We need to create more support, for women that need to come forward. We need to treat them differently and take them seriously. And as a result, a lot more women have been feeling safe and supported to come forward and to bring their stories out into the open in India, which is massive. That is a massive, massive potential opening that culture for a change in the global conversation, and a way of making everyone's feelings and experiences and reputation safe to be able to talk about the inequality that they're experiencing.
Right. Well, you know what? That is so beautiful. I love that you brought that in for a couple of reasons. Number one, I have no clue is what you're talking about. I am completely unplugged from mainstream media, have been since 2001.
Bless you.
and I'm so thankful for it. And the thing is, I know everything that's going on, but am not engaged in it in that sense, meaning when I turn on my computer, I see the headlines. I knew there was some kind of, but I had no idea what you were just saying, but I get what you're saying. But here's the thing that I always stress. when you look at the yin and yang symbol, you see, you know what the yin and yang symbol looks like.
Of course, yeah.
The dark and the white are equal, meaning as the light expands, the darkness expands the same. So what's happening? Yes, light is expanding. There's more light coming, but just as it's equal, there's never going to be an unbalanced yin yang symbol. Meaning there's never going to be more light than dark. The shadow and the light are equal. And God is all of it. God is just as much the shadow as he is the light. So when we understand, but yes, what you just said, we can't push away the darkness. We have to shine the light on it. And like you said, that her testimony shined the light where in an area where there was darkness. So now there's more light. The only thing that can transform the darkness is light and love. But we can't push it away because it is all one. It's not separate. There's no separation. So, but that's so cool that you use that example, that most people understand what you are following it. I'm totally removed from the actual hearing, and what I knew there's some kind of confirmation. It reminds me of back in the early 90s with what's his name, Clarence
Thomas, yeah.
Yes, and Anita
Hill.
Yes. So I knew something was going on. Now back in the 90s, I was plugged in and I saw the whole thing. So it seems like a kind of another repeat of that is going on. But that's so. But what you said is accurate. It is so true that. But what I always stress or try to bring across to people: the light and the dark are equal. And there is in this world that we live of polarity, that they're the same. They're the flip side, like love and fear. It's the same energy, flip side of the coin. You know,
yes.
And fear is just a cry for love. And,
yes.
And the only thing that can transform that darkness is the light, is love and light. So it's that's a great point that you brought in.
Yeah, and the polarity, you're right, the polarity is not going anywhere. It's actually getting more and more extreme, and there's less of a gray area. The gray areas are falling away, and it's really challenging people to actually make a choice to gravitate toward unity consciousness or to go deeper into the paradigm of separation, you know, to dig the heels of resistance in and to see where that takes you.
Yes.
Either way, it leads to transformation. You know,
Yes.
some people need to go into their fear and resistance and to be with that in order to find the doorway of transformation through that experience. And I would say that another way I would characterize that is to say that, you know, you can learn through expanding into greater love in each moment, in each situation that challenges you, or you can learn through suffering and resistance. They're both equally valid forms of learning.
Yes.
You know, I see people that learn through suffering, and sometimes it takes them longer to learn the lesson. Sometimes it's a more painful way of getting there. And I think about the point at which I learned how to start learning through expanding into greater love, which is far more graceful, far quicker, far more a beautiful way to evolve. But I can't judge anyone that is choosing the suffering path of learning, because it's a totally valid form of learning. It absolutely can get you there as well. The suffering breaks down resistance. Eventually, you reach the exalted state of surrender. And, you know, I had plenty of that suffering through resistance way of learning in earlier stages of my life.
Yes.
So, you know, you can't just give somebody the breakthrough of learning how to expand into love. It's got to come from within and be realized as a full body, full chakra, full consciousness realization that there's another way of doing this.
Yes.
And to allow love to guide you in a more profound way.
Yes. And like you said, every expression is valid. That's the understanding that we are all divine light, and we're all choosing. We're all creating this I call movie of our own creation. Our life experience is just a movie of our own creation that we chose. No one's doing it to us. We chose it. We're creating it for a reason from our higher self. So no one needs to be rescued. You know, everybody is a divine, sovereign spark of God. And they always will be, and they'll never be separated. You know, there's no separation. All there is the one. And so whatever expression is valid for them, even like you say, if they're suffering, it's still from their higher self. Now, their human self is not going to agree to that, not going to say, I chose this. But from my understanding, from my perspective, everybody is creating their own unique reality for their highest good. And all I can do is try to share my truth, and it may resonate with some and it may not. Some people might listen to this and say, oh, she's crazy, you know, put her in a loony bin or whatever. But it's what resonates in your heart. I encourage people to go in. What resonates, what speaks to you, live your truth to the best of your ability. And that's all I can do, is encourage people to go within and live their truth. And as far as the suffering, I do believe whenever you can help, of course, I encourage people to help. But also understand that everyone is their own savior. Because the real awakening comes from within. And when you wake up to who you truly are and start living your purpose for why you're here, that's when you save yourself that way. So we are each our own savior. But I love what you said about valid. Everybody's expression of how they're living their life is a valid expression. That's where the non-judgment and unconditional acceptance comes from with the oneness.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
You
now,
know,
go ahead.
We were talking about purpose, and I wanted to say something about that because, you know, this comes up a lot in the sessions that I do with people, and people are wanting to know, what is my purpose? That's one of the really big questions that people feel and are faced with. You know, I feel fortunate that for me, in terms of a career path and a role in the world, that question has really been answered. And it also is a continual process of it being answered. You know, you can't get too far ahead of yourself, and you can't expect to need to know everything before you need to know it. You know, it's all in divine timing. But I think a lot of people get a little bit confused in thinking that their purpose is, like, if they knew their purpose, then they'll know it all. They'll have a clearly defined pathway where they know what to do in each moment and each step, because it's this complete blueprint that somebody has handed you. And actually, our purpose is something that I would say the greater part of it has more to do with discerning what is yours to do in each moment, and surrendering to the little opportunities to help, which sometimes those things test you out of your comfort zone. Sometimes those opportunities stretch you in some way, but they also provide a way for you to expand in your capacity to love, to demonstrate love, to show up for others, to recognize opportunities that are being given to you to make a difference in small ways. So a lot of times people get caught up in this idea of a big purpose. You know, I want to know what the big purpose is, the big impact I'm going to make, so that I can focus on that. But it's the accumulation of all the little tiny things, the random acts of kindness, the things that you're able to discern that are completely random, that you didn't see coming on a daily basis, that's where you're having this big impact in the world. And it's important not to lose sight of that.
Well,
Somebody gave me a great reminder of that the other day, and I'm often giving that same message to other people. And I heard somebody else say it. I was like, yes, that's the wisdom. That's what we need to know.
that is so true, because that comes down to the truth of there is only the now.
Yes.
It is now. It's just now. There is no past and there is no future. There really is only the now moment. And in every now moment, there is a blessing. But we can only see that blessing if we're looking for that blessing. And like you said, small acts of kindness, then each of those moments are really huge. Just smiling at a person when they need a smile. As you're walking by someone in a grocery store and just giving them a smile. Those things, they seem small, but they're really huge. And they have a rippling effect to the universe, not just this planet. We are that important that we can affect the entire universe, not just this planet. So yes, and it's always the now moment. What can we do in this now moment? And that's how we build. And it's not, we won't know. Like you and I both, we're both pretty much know what our purpose are. We're living our purpose. But it's still in every now moment. It's like you said, there's no blueprint laid out. Okay, I know exactly what I'm going to do the next month. It's from moment to moment. And for me, it's being grounded in this now moment and being thankful. I am thankful in every now moment, whether it's raining, whether it's, I live in the Northeast and we've had 6 months of rain. It's like, and I'm not one to complain about the weather, but today the sun was out, now it's gone. But it's just, just being thankful in every now moment, regardless of what the weather is doing outside. Just counting my blessings and being thankful and seeing where I can be a blessing or a help to others, and knowing, because sometimes people don't even want your help, don't accept your help. And if you do, sometimes I smile and say hello to people and they give me a mean look. It's like, it's all good. It's all good. You just do what you can in that now moment, in the now. So I would say to those people that are, I want to know what my purpose is, just focus on the now. And right now, what can you do? What makes your heart sing? Taking a walk, or reading, or writing, or sitting by the lake. Whatever, what makes your heart sing in this now moment? And then just take it from each now moment.
Yep, absolutely. And I also feel that it's important to understand that in terms of the big purpose, awareness of the blueprint, you do gain more and more awareness of what that is over time as you pay attention to the step-by-step that's being revealed. So I would say one of the big keys, you mentioned one of the big keys, which is bringing gratitude into it, and living in gratitude. I'd say another really big key is just to ground your intent to be of service to humanity, to the earth, to the divine. And when you are focused on your path of service, then each step on that path is going to reveal itself. And over time, you get to know more of who you are in terms of a role, and how your personal strengths are continuing to develop in a way that can impart those strengths to other people that need to see your example. We're all here to be examples to each other, or we all have the potential to be examples to each other. And when you come to that place of really loving the example that you are, because you've strived to become better and you've seen yourself progress, then that love and that gratitude for who you are as an evolving being that has tremendous courage to come here and live this process as a human being, that love and gratitude for who you are just goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And then you get to see that self-love also becomes an example to others.
That is so true, because we are all unique. divine. We all have a little piece of the puzzle that only we can share with the world. There's something about us that only, if we don't share it, then it doesn't get shared. So there's something about each of us that uniquely we must bring to the pie. And it's so true that we are all courageous, very courageous souls to come, to choose to come here and choose to forget who we are to have this experience of awakening. So we're very courageous souls, each and every one of us. So yes, this is so true. Now, please share more about the book, about the lessons that are learned in the book.
Well, I would love to do that. In fact, it's interesting because I was just looking up a couple of paragraphs that I wanted to share of something that's unpublished, and then we'll come to the book, because this unpublished piece is kind of part of the source material of the teachings that went into the fiction book. And I know you're going to love this because it's right on topic with what we're talking about, with random acts of kindness and the ripple effect, the butterfly effect. So there's this message that I received from our future selves many, many years ago. I want to say it's about 10 years ago. And I'm just going to read a paragraph here. And it just says that many feel that they are powerless to affect the suffering in the world, yet one's ability to give is in no way dependent upon how much time or money one has. A single act of compassion can lead to a chain reaction of compassionate events that can cause a billionaire to give abundant support to impoverished communities, or a weapons contractor to resign and march for peace. Compassion's wings are greater than fears. Remember the butterfly.
Yes, so true. I quote Rumi a lot. Rumi's quote is one of my favorite quotes. You're not a drop in the ocean. You are an ocean in a drop, meaning everything you do affects not just this whole entire planet and everybody on it. Everything you do affects the entire universe. That affects all that is. That's how powerful you are. So like you said, a simple act of kindness can go so far. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Well, I want to tell you a little bit more about what's in this book, because I had a lot of help in creating a book like this, because I was really handed a spiritual blueprint for it. I had all of these spiritual guides that came to me to assist me to write it, and I had beings that I refer to as muses that actually inhabited the role of the characters I imagined for them. And so I have, the main protagonist is a 16-year-old girl, and she has two friends that are close to her age. And then there's a slightly older group of teens that are like 18, 19, almost 20. And so we have two different groups. And there's kind of parallel stories that are happening in different places that start to come together in a surprising and very synchronistic way. When you read it, it feels real. It feels like this is possible, that a force of love and guidance and unity consciousness does bring people together. I mean, I think people can think of times in their own life journey where somehow they were synchronistically brought together with the right person, the right group of people at the same time, and everyone felt like, there's something happening, like we all met for a reason. We all have a shared resonance of consciousness. And what we get to witness through the story is that this shared unity consciousness, this intention to break down the barriers that all of these younger characters have. The older characters have it as well, because we also see that some of their parents have their own roles to play in the story. But this focuses quite a bit on the efforts of actually three different groups of teens that all want to break down the barriers of separation that exists between them. And there's a spirit of oneness and synchronicity and connectedness that brings their lives together in a surprising way that gives them the opportunity to start to break down these barriers. And we're talking somewhat about a barrier that exists. That's something I've observed for a long time and have been very interested in. And it's this barrier of separation that exists between what I'm calling in the book the surface culture and this secret and now subterranean element of, I don't want to call it strictly like a military culture, because it's not strictly military anymore, but it's, there are elements of military and covert government projects that have played a role in creating and setting up these, what started out as deep underground military bases and have now become whole living populations inside the earth. They're now even experimenting with sealing off some of these subterranean cities to see if they can remain self-sufficient and not need to get more supplies from the surface. Okay. So they're experimenting. This is a secret society that's experimenting with how to live underground. And by and large, though, they are still siphoning tremendous amounts of resources from the surface. Right. And our surface culture is being gradually adapted and manipulated in a way that serves the plan of these secret subterranean cities. Right. And there are now, there's a whole generation of people, of teenagers coming of age that were born inside of these subterranean cities that have never even been to the surface. Okay. So that's part of what we're talking about. We're talking about souls that are system busters, that are, like indigo children kind of souls born into a culture like this, that are curious about the surface, that want to know why are we separate? Why are we not connected to them? Why can we not go there? And how can we turn this around? Because something about this doesn't feel right. Yes. Yes. So there's a lot of stories to tell within this book. Yes. And it was fascinating to see this all come together in the way that it did, because the story really told itself. I felt like I was writing the book that I wanted to read, that I wished was out there on the bookshelf somewhere. And it's like, I want to read this story. Yes. But in order to read it, I have to write it.
Yes, yes. And you know what I'm seeing? I'm seeing the movie. I'm like, this is going to be a movie. And I'm like, I can't wait for the movie.
Yeah. Although I would say, please read the book before it becomes a movie. The book is always better than the movie.
The book is always better than the movie.
Right?
Yeah.
So
yes, the book
I remember when I was seeing the Harry Potter films come out, and I was in a period of my life where I felt like I was too busy for a fiction book, which I haven't ever liked, because I used to love to read. I read all the time. And then I kind of just started getting a lot of my information online and reading articles. Reading whole novels is something that I hadn't done in a while. And as the movie started coming out, I was like, these are good movies. These are really fun. And I hear the books are really entertaining. Yes. I feel like I don't want the movies to ruin the experience of all of the books. So I better start diving in and reading some of these before all of the movies have come out. And so I started reading the last two books that they didn't have movies for yet at the time. Okay. And I was blown away by my experience of the story. I went back and started reading the earlier ones. Yes. And I was reading this. I was like waking up early in the morning and just reading with the light, a little bit of light coming in through the window in the early morning. And I was like reading in bed with this little tiny bit of light shining onto the book. Yes. And just trying to fit it in whenever I could, because I was so engaged in it. Right. And the inspiration that I felt around how fiction could really be used in an entertaining way to teach truth, it inspired me. And within a couple of years, the blueprint for these fiction books started coming through. And I have a blueprint spiritually, energetically, for all 4 of the books. So there's 3 more books to go. Each one has a different theme, takes the reader down unexpected twists and turns in the path, and leads us into unknown realities that some of us have thought about, been curious about, wondered about. Do these things really exist? And we get to see them not just as a fictional story, but something that is based largely upon my own inner experiences of a visionary nature, and through remote viewing and traveling out of body and witnessing the things that I'm writing about. So there's really as much truth as I could possibly pack in to something that is a very fantastic adventure.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds like I said, I envision the movie. There's definitely going to be a movie, and some people are going to, the book is always better. So when you see a movie that's really good, you got to read. Even if you go from the movie to the book, you got to read the book because,
Which,
yeah.
I'm totally fine with that too. And I'll tell you something. When I was writing this, even before I got the blueprint for the first book, I was shown the blueprint for the second book as a movie, as if it already was in film.
Right.
And then shortly after the publication of the first book, this is only like 2 months ago, less than 2 months ago that this came out.
Right.
Shortly after that, I was meditating, and I had a clear vision in my mind open up, and I was sitting in the audience of the premiere, and I was seeing the director's name, and I was seeing the opening scenes. And then I also have had dreams where at least 1 or 2 famous actors have come to me in my dreams and said that they wanted to support the project and they wanted to play one of the roles, and they told me which character they wanted to play.
Okay.
And I'm like, wow, I'm flattered. This is really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome because honestly, I have to tell you, I am, like I said, I'm unplugged from mainstream news, but I have Netflix and Hulu Plus, and I watch movies and I watch the television shows I like, just with no commercials. But I can honestly tell you, I see in just television shows and in movies, I see tidbits of truth. And every time I see it, it just makes me smile. And now for you to have a whole series, a whole movie series, which people will go back and read the book, but the whole movie series of just leading you down the path to awakening is amazing. And it's definitely it's already now, because I mean everything that is already here, and it's just about us manifesting it by raising our vibration so we can experience it. So it already is, because if you can envision it, it is already so. So, and I know you know that. Yes. Yes. So yeah, so I'm very excited. Well, I know me, I'll probably watch the movie first and then read the book. I'm just being honest.
Yeah, it's okay.
I'll be honest, but I would love to go to a premiere. Don't forget about me because I would like to meet one of those actors. Yes.
Well, it's before it could be made into a film, it has to become more widespread as a book, of course. And so, obviously, I want to encourage people to get the book and start exploring it. There has not been a lot of fiction books like this in the world. I mean, we have the Celestine Prophecy series, we have The Alchemist, we have The Mutant Message Down Under, we have, the Da Vinci Code had some truth packed into it. Right. But in terms of fiction being used to deliver a very powerful spiritual teaching that is inspired and channeled and came in as a blueprint to actually help awaken the masses.
Right.
There are not very many books or series of books that do that. There are lots of books with amazing fantasy elements. I mean, Harry Potter was extremely successful, because it was so entertaining and so well written and so fun. And yet there's also very profound messages of love in that book, and there's also truth that's taught in that book, and it's woven into it. It's a little bit, I'd say this series that I'm writing is the flip side of the coin, because that one was incredibly fun and entertaining and had some truth in it. Right. And this one is a little bit more focused on connecting people into these currents of spiritual awakening, and it uses fun and adventure and entertainment as a way to deliver that. So it's kind of the flip side of the coin. Yes. But it's a rare find for people that are truth seekers, but they need to be entertained, and they need to also experience these things in a way that is approachable. Because I had some people read this and say, "Wow, some of the information in this book is pretty scary and pretty eye-opening, and really opened my eyes." in a way that it was confronting, because some of the truth in it was so real. And it's like, wow, could that really happen? Is that really there? I want to touch upon something. I think you have had plenty of observations of this, and I love your feedback on this, because what I have witnessed here in America is that, and especially from traveling outside of America, coming back in and talking to other people that live outside of America and have traveled here,
Yes.
America is a place where there is a blueprint for tremendous love and light and transformation to awaken here and ripple out and have a profound effect on the world. And because of the tremendous potential for America to play a catalyst role in awakening human consciousness, this is also the place that has attracted the darkest elements of fear, greed, and corruption. And so the American people, part of the purpose of the American people collectively is to change our resonance to the duality that and the separation and the competition that has allowed these elements of fear, greed, and corruption to take root here. And it is our purpose collectively to come together into unity and to cast out these elements of fear from our own consciousness, because as we purify ourselves of our fear, then it leaves very little room for fear to operate and to continue to manipulate, because there's so much light shining on it and bringing it all out into the open. And so that is what is taking place in this book, Roya Sands, The Bridge Between Worlds, because we see our heroes and in this America, in this experience of dealing with forms of oppression that are largely invisible, but get revealed to these characters in ways that you would think that this would mostly make you shaken to the core and going, wow, how can we ever possibly defeat this or rise above this?
Right.
And yet there's an optimism in these characters that I know that you know this optimism, because it's something that you have carried in your heart as a strength. And that same optimism inside of me has always made me expand beyond what looks like an obstacle that is insurmountable, to say, no, wait a minute. Together we can do this. All problems are solvable if we work together.
Right. Well, exactly. Honestly, what you just described brings me back, and I always say the yin and yang symbol. Because expansion is from the center both ways. The more light is equal amount of dark. It's all, you're expanding this way. This is how we expand. So we expand in both. We expand with the more light we're aware of is the equal amount of dark that we become aware of. And we can't push away the dark. The only way we have to embrace the dark. We have to shine a light on the dark, like you said with the lady with the testimony to the thingy thing. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
She shined the light, her testimony, and especially because it was so publicized in the media, it shined a light on that dark area. And so what we can do with the dark aspects of the shadow side of ourselves, that's the other thing. We have to own the dark. We can't just own the light. We have to own the dark, and then we shine a light on it to transform it. So, because the more we push against it, the stronger it's going to come back at us.
Yes. I want to read to you a little part of the book here, because it talks about what you're talking about. And this is part of the prophecy. It's actually in a chapter called The Prophecy. And in this chapter, we hear the main character, Roya, who's a 16-year-old girl, and two of her friends are talking with their kind of wisdom teacher and guide as they have journeyed down into the inner earth to make contact with one of these advanced civilizations that is the remnant of Lemuria and Atlantis. And they're holding some of this information and stewarding it for us. And we now see a discussion taking place about the prophecy of these times. So it says, Let's see. A prophecy has resurfaced a number of times over the centuries, and each time it stirs up a lot of conversation and debate about where our history on this planet is going. The prophecy speaks of three phases: convergence, integration, and emergence. These are the three phases of a transformative event in planetary history that my people believe is now well underway. But what it all means is still a subject of debate. Convergence, integration, emergence, repeated Roya, writing it in her notebook. The prophecy spoke of a great convergence of historical forces, some opposing each other and others more unifying. The unifying forces of oneness and wholeness would connect everyone together in a way that confronts people inwardly with how their fears, attachments, and beliefs obstruct their own awakening. But this was never about just my people, the people living underground. This was about the world we left behind on the surface and how the many families of consciousness sharing this planet would come together as an integrated whole. The prophecy states that the convergence was destined to catalyze a great change, challenging all of the forces present to achieve integration with each other through a unified field of being. It also states that more and more people would achieve this integration and model it for others until a new world emerged from inside them. We believe the emergence is connected with the arrival of time waves from a new future of wholeness. These time waves will inform the world of a purpose that includes all the families of consciousness connected with the earth. In essence, the emergence is connected with the realization of a divine plan that will give all of humanity a shared vision of its infinite potential. That's really inspiring, expressed Amy. Yes, it is, but the prophecy said it would not be an easy process. It would involve integrating with opposing forces to achieve balance, as well as facing one's fears of reconnecting with the greater whole. We tend to think of it as a birthing process, which can be both painful and ecstatic. Wisdom tells us that surrendering represents the path of least resistance. But even now, my people are debating our role in this birth process, and not everyone agrees with the prophecy. So that's getting into the great dilemma of, what are everyone's roles in this process, and where is it going? Is it going to be a failed process, as this process has failed on other worlds before, or is it going to become a universal success story? Right. So, the role of these characters is to actually go through a process of helping humanity to realize its potential, because they are showing up to play their role regardless of any debate or any fear around where it's all going, because they just feel passionate about being who they are in all of this. Exactly. The reason why I share this is because there's, this process of integrating with opposing forces. So you're talking about light and dark, and how light and dark are remaining balanced to a great degree in this process. So it doesn't look to me like a process of one side winning over the other, like the light is going to somehow win over the dark. The resolution to a great degree comes about through integrating light and dark through compassion.
That you got it. Every time you use the word integration, that's what I'm like, yes, that's what I mean is, yes, the yin and yang symbol is showing, the yin and yang symbol is one, meaning when we say light and dark, we're talking duality, but it's not. It's one. The light and the dark are one. And how you transform the dark is by integrating it with the light. That's how you transform it. But don't forget, that's why I said, let's own it. Let's own the dark. We want to just own the light, but we have to own. The dark wants to be owned. The dark's like, wait a second, I'm a part of you. I am not separate from you. I want the love and light that, not, so it's this whole separation consciousness that we think evil versus good, dark versus light, that doesn't exist. It's all one. There's no separation. And how you transform the dark is by integrating it, shining a light on it. Love is the answer to everything. Love can transform that darkness to light. So,
yes.
And if we try to push against it, like what in history, it's all about pushing against it and fighting against what we don't agree with. And that just makes it stronger.
Yep. That's another thing that the book teaches, is that attacking, fearing, or resisting someone's position that is opposing you only reinforces the separation, and that there is a potential of synergy that you can focus upon that involves you releasing your own resistance to the other person's resistance and finding the path of synergy that creates safety for each person to emerge out of their resistance and to learn how to trust in a synergy that wants to take us into that path of integration with group consciousness. Now, I also think that the yin-yang symbol, there's another element to it too, which is crisis and opportunity, and how crisis and opportunity go together. And I actually think that at some point, we're not there yet, and it may not come, anytime soon collectively, but individually, when we are not resisting the opposition, when we're not reinforcing any form of darkness, which sometimes we label it something as darkness, but it's just resistance. When we don't resist the resistance, when we don't fight it or judge it or fear it or project anger upon it, then whatever crisis that has created the opposition or the breakdown of communication or whatever can be seen merely as a crisis that contains an opportunity, and you kind of can remove the whole dark versus light and good versus evil from it and just see each event or each challenge as a crisis that contains an opportunity. So I think that there's a non-dualistic way of viewing that symbol as well. I mean, you're already talking about it, that it's non-dualistic from your view anyways, even looking at it from light and dark. But I love the crisis and versus opportunity element of it as well, because eventually when we transform our resistance, when we move collectively into a state of surrender, then we won't need darkness in the current forms we're seeing it in order to bring about change as a catalyst, because a crisis can occur that catalyzes change without it having to cause suffering upon suffering upon suffering before we actually realize what we need to change within ourselves to do something about it.
In truth, and this is when I share, I always have to say from my viewpoint. In truth, from my viewpoint, every crisis, every challenge is your greatest blessing.
Yep.
They're your greatest blessing, because and then when it's all about owning the fact that you created the challenge in the first place, and you created it for your highest good. And when you look at every challenge as a blessing, and you approach it with that, and you actually thank it, you're thankful for the challenge. When you actually when you're sincerely understand that you created it for your highest good, and you're looking at it as a blessing, it transforms immediately. But the struggle, what we call pain and struggle, only comes from resisting what is.
Yep.
The isness of it. And when you understand the isness is all for your highest good, and it's all a blessing. And the most difficult, the greatest blessings are what we call our most difficult challenges. When you look at life from that viewpoint, you don't suffer, you don't struggle, because you're like, oh, goody, another opportunity to grow, to learn, I created this for my highest good. I know it in my heart, and when I know it, I'll just, okay, now, in this now moment, what's the best way to deal with this in love? Because I know love is the answer.
Yep.
Yep. But
yep.
yeah.
The challenge is really for so many of us is how to respond from love, in love, to things that challenge us when other people are coming from a place of judging, fearing, attacking, whatever. What does it look like to respond in love? And something that I'm constantly learning how to do. And I notice I'm making progress. I'm getting better all the time. But it also is a great challenge to continually meet situations that challenge you to step out of old behaviors, to not react from a place that is from a hurt place. An example of this, interestingly, I received a communication from someone more than a month ago, and there was a lot of anger and distortions and victim consciousness and things that were being projected at me. And initially, I wanted to respond, and then something said, well, you need to clear yourself first in order to do the work to create at your end of the bridge of love, so that this relationship can come into balance. Yes. And I actually had the presence of a master, a living saint and living master came to me, this woman who I've met several times, and her presence came to me as an emissary of Divine Mother's love and said, I will come to you when it's time for you to write this email, and I will help hold you in a consciousness of Divine Mother's love as you are writing to respond, so that you can respond from the most loving place and have the best opportunity of creating healing. Mm-hmm. And so to me, that was affirming the importance of taking a step back, of formulating, doing the clearing work, and finding alignment with that consciousness of love that wants to create the most balance and healing. And so, in that situation, I felt some of these messages from this person very personally. And so I needed extra support to find, the love for myself and the love and compassion for where this person was coming from, so that I could, figure out how to find the balance. So
yes,
it's, if you need to call forth an extra angelic support to be able to get clear and, form the most loving response in a situation, then that's what it takes. But this is what we need to learn how to do. And it does make a massive difference when you can practice that, as I also am continually seeing in my own life.
Yes, that is so true. Now for me, as I do, and I've done this, I always view the other as part of me, not separate as me. So right. Whatever's coming from them, that's coming from within me. And I have done this. I have made a list of all of the people that I felt hurt me in my life. And I've actually sent them, some of them on the list, thank you cards. Just thanking them for being them. Because one of the things that helps me, I speak about this, it's a children's book. It's The Little Soul in the Sun by Neil Donald Walsh. And it speaks about when we're in spirit before we come into this incarnation, how we ask certain souls, other souls, to actually be mean to us. To actually, everything that happens in our life, every word that another person says to us, every action that another person does to us comes from us. We are the author, creator, director of our reality. So for me, it's unconditional forgiveness always, because there's no one to forgive but me. They're just another aspect of me. And right. So yes, what you did, a lot of times you get an email or even I had someone curse me out in the grocery store on a line because they thought I was moving too slow. This is a complete stranger. Just actually I was shocked and the cashier was shocked. So, but it was like, so yes, what you did, you need to center. When things like that happen, you have to center, because you don't want to just react. You want to come from a place of love. And to come from a place of love, you do have to ground yourself and center yourself. But also for me, I also remember that person's not separate from me. And so they're automatically going to be forgiven. And I actually have sent thank you cards to people that I felt have hurt me in the past, just thanking them for being them. Because in truth, I didn't go into the spiritual aspect of it, because it would have gone over their head. So I just said, thank you for being you. Because I know that in some aspect, I asked, like I said, we plan our greatest challenges. So even that we plan, and we planned it, and how we respond. So when people come at us, and we're that unexpectedly strangers even, we have to just ground ourselves, center ourselves, remember it's coming from us, and to always unconditional love, unconditional forgiveness. So, and it's in every now moment. I still have to remind myself in every now moment who I am, and this illusion, this dream of my creation. And I think owning it is one of my biggest blessings for me. Because then when I own it, nothing is out of my control, and I don't have to react from a place of disempowerment. I can always come from a place of love. But
Yeah.
I understand what you're talking about exactly. But you did exactly the right thing. Yes.
Yep. Yeah, it's an ongoing process. It takes constant work and focus, and what you're saying is absolutely true. In my own experience, I know that to be true, that we asked all of these people to play all of these roles, and we set it all up this way. So it's always good to remember that and realize that, whatever happened, we needed this to happen for some reason.
Yes.
It had some role to play that was important for our spiritual growth. And so there's no blame, there's no victims. There's only, what did I need to learn from this?
Exactly. And I'm always constantly asking, okay, I know this is happening for my highest good. What is the highest good? And I usually do. After a short time, I can see the highest good in most situations. So,
Yeah.
and just knowing, then I say, if you can't, because not everybody can see the highest good in each situation, but even if you can't, knowing that what's happening is happening for your highest good, that knowing, and it's an individual thing. Because I tell people, all I can do is share my truth and share my journey, but each person I encourage to go within, tap into what's true for them, live their truth, each and every now moment. And it's just a moment to moment thing. I mean, the next moment I could be in a corner crying somewhere, but then I can remember, wait a second, who am I? Wake up. Remind yourself who you are in every now moment. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
And the now is all there is. That's beautiful. I love that, because I do as much as I can. I try not to even project the future or think about the past. I mean, I know the future and the past kind of play a role in the movie of our creation, but it's the now is where it's at. The now is your point of power.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So tell us more. Now, I know you've been traveling a lot. So tell our listeners how they can keep up with you, where they can go to find you and to follow you, and tell us what's going on.
Well, I have a website that is for the book, and it's where all of my interviews and information about events and where I'm going to be is going. And that's royasands.com. So it's spelled like this,
Okay.
royasands.com, after the name of the main character. And, I'm putting all of my information. This interview is going to go on there. Yes. And everything else I'm doing is going on there, because we're really at the beginning of a whole new campaign to bring these new truths and insights out into the world. And, through the fiction books, obviously, but this is the beginning of bringing people into a conversation that we can now begin to have about the insights and the story of our lives,
Yes.
and how it is connecting us with new kinds of human experience in this emerging field of oneness and unity consciousness.
Yes.
So I'm very excited to be able to connect with people and share with people about that. I'm actually going to be starting up a podcast show myself very soon. I have a YouTube channel. I'm starting to film a lot more YouTube videos. So people can, go to YouTube and just look up Saryon. You find me just by spelling my name, Saryon.
Yes.
And lots of new stuff going on YouTube. And I'm excited to interact with people, to answer their questions, and to engage people in a whole new conversation.
Awesome. Very, very. I'm so happy. I'm so glad that this book, the main characters are in their teens, which will attract teenagers. They love to read about characters in their own age group. So I love the fact that even though the book is for everyone that's awakening, but it's going to be attractive to teens and preteens. So that I love.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing it get more in the hands of young truth seekers that are interested to discover more about their identities in a way that can, kind of open some doorways to their intuition and to their awareness of energy, because the book is designed to do that.
Yes.
It's a great way to learn about your own natural human abilities. We've seen so many novels about people having unrealistic powers that they're awakening to. This is about natural human abilities and powers that we are awakening to, that are actually accessible to us, and not just to certain special people, because anyone that starts to pay attention and observe and to work with intention to gain access to the world of energy and the invisible world of energy around us, will be able to do that. And the book is designed to open those doorways inside of us and give us real tools. So I hope that a lot of awakening teens will find this book and discover something about themselves that really empowers them with real tools and insights and a spirit and sense of adventure about their own story.
Yes. Well, it's so true, though. Everything is energy. Science has proven that. And I'll never forget in 7th grade, my science teacher telling me nothing is truly solid. When we were studying molecules and atoms, you take anything like this desk that's in front of me, you put it under a high power microscope. What do you see? You see life. You see movement. You see atoms and molecules zooming around, and they're not even touching. So in truth, they're not touching. In truth, it's not even solid. Science has proven we don't live in a solid universe.
Yes.
Science has proven we live in a world of our own creation. This is proof scientifically. I'm not even talking spirituality. And the thing is, science is just touching the tip of the iceberg. Science has a long way to go. But even with our limited human science, we've already proven that we don't live in a solid world. So, yes, and that everything is energy. Yes. Yep. And I call that energy love.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, this has been great. And I do hope that I get a copy of the book, a signed, autographed copy of the book, because I want to start reading it now. I haven't read a novel in eons, so I would love to start to read it.
I would love for you to have one.
Okay, so I'm going to send you my physical mailing address. Okay.
I love it.
Thank you so much, Saryon.
Thank you.
A wonderful, wonderful conversation. I love having you as my guest. And anytime, you're welcome. And I can't wait to watch your podcast. Yes, that is a great thing. I know that you're following your heart and your soul's passion, and as I. So this is a wonderful union. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Blessings in oneness, and we'll be in touch.
Yes, we will. We definitely will stay in touch. Namaste.
Namaste.